What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? Who should be the backup catcher? Who should be the second left-handed reliever? And of course, a D-backs prop bet to end today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. Would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free and available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. We're stuck on 911 subscribers, trying to hit 1,000 before opening day. So please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. Now, what are we discussing on today's show? Of course, I want to end the show with a D-backs prop bet, talk about who should be the second left-handed reliever in the bullpen and who should be the D-backs backup catcher for this season. But before we get into that conversation, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Now let's get into the conversation and let's talk about who should be the backup catcher for the D-backs, because for this spring training camp battle, I really believe it's just going to come down to two options. Now, the D-backs are inviting other non-roster invitees to spring training like Adrian Del Castillo and JJ D'Orazio. Again, I'm not the greatest at some of these pronunciations for the minor league guys, but I don't see either of those two guys winning the backup catcher award. That's why I'm going to talk about them at the beginning of this segment, because both of them are camp invites, but both of them have spent time in AAA, and neither one of them is a great defensive player, and both of them in Reno were not able to put up good offensive numbers, and we know everyone in Reno seems to just crush the ball. So when you're not smacking the ball down in one of the best hitter-friendly ballparks in minor league baseball, I just don't think you're going to have a long career. So a couple camp invites for backup catcher. We'll mention them here just because it's our due diligence, but I don't think those guys really have any chance of winning the backup catcher award. I know we talked about some long shots for camp battles the last couple of days, but I do think those long shots at least have a path to getting some playing time this season, or maybe very small percent chance that they win the camp battle, outright in spring training. These guys, I mean, whether it's spring training or injuries throughout the season, I really think the chance of these guys making any sort of appearance for the D-backs is just super low. Even if Gabriel Moreno and the backup catcher gets hurt, I still don't know if these guys would get the call up to the major league level. The D-backs would probably outsource and sign a minor league free agent or try to trade for someone. So Adrian Del Castillo and JJ, very, very low on the backup catcher list. So let's get into the two real options for the backup catcher, because I think it's Jose Herrera versus Tucker Barnhart, and each one offers something different to the D-backs. For Jose Herrera, you get a guy who's already been in the organization for multiple years. This is someone that's been on the opening day roster the last 2 years. He's caught Zach Gallen. He's caught Merrill Kelly. He's caught Brandon Pfaadt. Like, this is someone that knows the pitchers really well on the staff so far. And if you want someone that has the experience and be a seamless transition to the rotation already, I think Jose Herrera is your option. The downside of Herrera is he just gives you no upside whatsoever. And that's from both an offensive and defensive standpoint. Herrera last year, I mean, just not a good offensive player at all. And that's not surprising. It wasn't like he was heralded as an offensive catcher. It's not like he was considered the next Gabriel Moreno or anything, but even the offensive numbers, I mean, for his career, 198 average, 272 OBP, and a 231 slugging over 88 career games on the major league level. Offensively, Jose Herrera gives you next to nothing as an offensive catcher. And defensively, I think you would be okay with those terrible offensive numbers as a backup catcher if he was like another Moreno-esque defensive catcher, but he's not. Herrera both doesn't hit for average, for power, speed, whatever you want to say. He's not good offensively, and defensively, he's average at best. When it comes to blocking pitches and frame rate, like that's not really Herrera's job, which is a big part of being a catcher, right? And Herrera's not exactly elite in that area. He is pretty solid at stopping the run, but when it comes to actually blocking pitches or framing pitches, he's not good in that area. Now, Herrera, if the D-backs don't pick him opening day to be the backup catcher, he does have an option left, so he can start the season AAA if the D-backs go in a different direction. Then, of course, there's injury. Then the D-backs would be able to call him up. But I do think Herrera might have a slight inside track to being the backup catcher just because of the experience. But honestly, it's really a coin flip between him and the other candidate, Tucker Barnhart, because Tucker Barnhart just has way more experience on the major league level than a Jose Herrera. But it's not like Tucker Barnhart has, at this point of his career, much more upside. Like the best thing for Tucker Barnhart on his resume is that experience, because you look at the offensive numbers. I mean, Barnhart has not been good the last couple of years. Last year with the Cubs in 43 games, 202 average and a 541 OPS. Like he signed like a 2-year deal with the Cubs last year, and he was cut after just like 43 games, like I just mentioned. And then he signed a minor league deal with the Dodgers and never appeared for the Dodgers last season. So when you're comparing both of these guys, they're both offensive liabilities, but Tucker Barnhart is slightly better, or maybe even way better. I don't know about way better. I don't know the level of better, but Tucker Barnhart is a better defensive catcher than Jose Herrera. And the fact that he has been in Major League Baseball a lot longer, those are probably the two nods in the cap of Barnhart. He's better at framing than Herrera. He's probably better at overall blocking pitches as well. And he did catch Erod in Detroit as well. Barnhart had spent a season in Detroit. He is familiar with Erod. So if you do want someone to maybe just be Erod's catcher full term, full time, maybe Tucker Barnhart is that answer in that scenario. So Barnhart, someone last year, just like a Herrera, does nothing for you offensively, but because he is better defensively and has more major league experience, that could be the reason that the D-backs go in the direction of Tucker Barnhart. And also, Tucker Barnhart, also lefty. Now, Jose Herrera is a switch hitter, so you do like to see that if you're the D-backs for a platoon situation. But Barnhart, a true lefty, so you could go Moreno with the righty and then Tucker Barnhart as your true lefty to really complement Moreno as the backup catcher. So I don't know what direction the D-backs are going to go in. It probably will just come down to who looks better in spring training. Both of them have similar flaws and strengths. Barnhart probably a little bit better, but also considering Jose Herrera is what? I'm going to look up his age real quick. Jose Herrera going to be 27 years old. Meanwhile, Barnhart, 33 years old. If you want to go with the younger guy, fresher legs, probably a better pop time, you probably would go with Jose Herrera. But both of these options are not going to be the sexiest. Both of these options are not the prettiest, and it really probably doesn't matter who the D-backs pick because you'll probably get similar production for both of these guys. Maybe the D-backs should have thought about signing someone like Gary Sanchez, but that boat has already sailed. So whoever the D-backs choose between Tucker Barnhart and Jose Herrera, I'm going to wipe my hands clean and say, you know what? The production is probably going to be the same at the end of the day, and it really doesn't matter who wins the backup catcher job. Now we'll discuss who should be the second left-handed reliever in the D-backs bullpen for the upcoming season. But if you're looking to buy tickets for opening day to the D-backs season, then the place you need to go is Game Time, because Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the best place to find last minute seats. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast and let's discuss who should be the second left-handed reliever for the Dbacks because, of course, you typically carry 8 relievers in your bullpen, and it feels like the D-backs are going to go 6 righties, 2 lefties because that's typically what you do throughout the season with injuries and stuff like that. Like, you're probably going to touch 15 or so relievers throughout the season, and at times you're going to have 5 righties to 3 lefties. But to start the season, the D-backs more than likely will have 6 righties to 2 lefties in their bullpen. So we have to figure out who's going to be that second left-handed reliever because as we were talking today, Joe Mantiply, he feels like a lock for the bullpen. Did he have a great season last year? No. 4.62 ERA, 39 innings pitched. His strikeouts went down, his walks went up, but Joe Mantiply, all-star in 2022, really strong 2021, and I still feel like as a spot starter for the D-backs this past season when they had to go with the bullpen game, I still feel like he was fine. Joe Mantiply, I still think is someone that the D-backs really trust. When we look at his numbers against lefties, absolutely elite. He would just crush against right-handed pitching. So hopefully the D-backs stop throwing him against right-handed pitching this season. And he also in the second half of the season looked a lot better than he did in the first half of the year. So I think the D-backs are expecting positive regression and also less opportunity against those right-handed batters. So who should be the D-backs second lefty reliever in the bullpen? I think it's going to come down to 3 main guys: Andrew Saalfrank, Kyle Nelson, and Brandon Hughes, and each of these guys offers something different. For Andrew Saalfrank, this is someone that we already saw last year look pretty damn good with the Arizona Diamondbacks because he was like a top 20-ish prospect, I want to say, last year, and he wasn't on my radar at all entering the season. And by the end of the year, as we enter the postseason, we were like, Saalfrank needs to be on the postseason roster because he was electric down the stretch of the season. 10.1 innings pitched, no earned runs. Now, did he rack up the Ks? No. Did he walk a couple guys? Yes, he did. But run prevention, Andrew Saalfrank was absolutely absolutely elite. He was a sinker, curveball type of pitcher for the D-backs last season. Does have a little bit of a funky delivery, but very effective with it. Throws a low 90 sinker, and you mix in that curveball as well. Really effective, and the sinker just absolutely unhittable from the D-backs last season. And he has a great combination of getting people to chase pitches, getting whiffs, getting that ground ball rate. So Saalfrank, I mean, if he can replicate what he did last season, only 26 years old, Saalfrank looked really, really strong for the D-backs coming out their bullpen. The D-backs can use another really effective lefty. It's kind of been one of their weaknesses in their bullpen the last few years, finding that second good lefty because you've had Joe Mantiply put together really good stretches for the D-backs throughout the season, but then your second left-handed reliever would be guys like Caleb Smith, which is just not good enough. Saalfrank last season, again, small sample size. You want to see a bigger sample size for him entering this year, but with men on the bases, 192 average and a 442 OPS, that makes you feel really good. And in high leverage moments, 214 average, a 527 OPS. Saalfrank, absolutely elite at run prevention last year. He stands at 6'3", 205. He's a big boy pitching behind the plate. And I'm just in on Saalfrank this year. I think his delivery adds to a level of deception that's really strong. And his ground ball rate, 74% last year. Absolutely insane. So Saalfrank, I think, is a really interesting candidate to return and be a D-backs reliever in 2023. And he probably has the inside track with how good he looked last year to be the D-backs second left-handed reliever. But Kyle Nelson, also someone that I think is pretty interesting because he's someone that we've also seen. Last year wasn't the case, but we've seen him be good in the past. Last year, 4.18 ERA, 56 innings pitched. Not the best, but 2022, 37 innings pitched. He had a 2.19 ERA. Kyle Nelson 2022 was like the D-backs' second best reliever. Like, he was so important for the D-backs in 2022. It was like Joe Mantiply, and it was like Kyle Nelson as the two best D-backs relievers coming out the pen. And for some reason last year, Kyle Nelson really struggled at home. 5.53 ERA at home, but 2.86 ERA on the road. And also, he was really good in the first half of the season. 2.6 ERA in the first half, 6.75 ERA in the second half. So if you can get first half Kyle Nelson, you'll definitely take that guy as your second left-handed reliever because he's still someone can rack up the strikeouts. Almost 11 strikeouts per 9 last season with 2.3 walks per 9. He had a 28% strikeout rate to just a 6% walk rate. That is the best skill that Kyle Nelson has, that K to walk rate. But his biggest issue might be the fact that he gives up a lot of hard contact. Kyle Nelson gives up a lot of loud outs, which you don't like to see. When we look at his four-seamer from last year, 321 average against that four-seamer, 556 slugging allowed, and that cutter, 294 average. Just not good enough. He needs to give up less hard contact going into this season if he wants to be that D-back's second lefty reliever. Now, if he doesn't get chosen to be the D-back's second lefty reliever to start the season, he's still someone that has two options left. So you could start the year with both a Mantiply and a Sal Frank, put Kyle Nelson in AAA, and then if anyone gets hurt or if anyone struggles, then you could call up Kyle Nelson in the middle of the season or early in the season, whatever you want to do. So Kyle Nelson is still someone that I like a lot. He's still someone that's on my radar. He's still someone that I think could be a D-backs reliever going forward. I mean, still overall in the season, a 4.18 year rate is not terrible. And a lot of it was just buoyed by how much he struggled in the first half of the year. So if you could get second half Kyle Nelson, he's still someone that could be a super effective reliever, still be someone that racks up a ton of strikeouts while limiting the walk. So I still like Kyle Nelson a lot, but he does have to improve. And Andrew Saalfrank definitely has the inside track over a Kyle Nelson. And right now, I would probably bet on Joe Mantiply and Andrew Saalfrank being the two lefties out of the bullpen for the D-backs on opening day. But we still have one other lefty reliever candidate that I want to discuss in segment number 3. And I still got to give you my big D-backs prop bet to end today's segment, the play of the day for today's segment. I have to give you that in segment number 3. And speaking of the play of the day, if you're making plays and if you're betting, then you have to go to FanDuel Sportsbook because happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. Best believe I'm doing a same-game parlay where I'm taking Mahomes and the boys to win the Super Bowl. Give me the Chiefs money line. Give me Mahomes over on the passing touchdowns, and why not give me Kelsey over on the yards because I know he's going to be motivated by his girl, Taylor Swift. And maybe we'll even throw in a Taylor Swift prop bet. How many cutaways do we get to Taylor Swift during the Super Bowl? So if you want to win some money too, just go to FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, all right, all right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's wrap up the podcast by giving you one more lefty reliever candidate, and then giving you one more prop bet, the play of the day, thanks to FanDuel Sportsbook. So, first of all, the last lefty candidate that could be a bullpen guy for the D-backs, the second lefty reliever, is Brandon Hughes, signed to a minor league deal, coming off a really atrocious season this past year. 13.2 innings pitched and a 7.24 ERA. Now, if you want to hear something good, 27% strikeout rate. You'd love to see that. Brandon Hughes, his biggest strength is the fact that he can rack up the Ks. And in the last 2 seasons, he's been able to do that. Racked up the Ks despite struggling last year. Racked up the Ks in 2022 as well. Now, did have a 12.7% walk rate last year. You don't like to see that. But for Brandon Hughes, the case for him really is the fact that he was really good in 2022 and not good in 2023, but maybe could attribute it to the fact that he dealt with health issues and he had to cut the season short with knee surgery. And so maybe you believe Brandon Hughes, if he's back to full strength, maybe you could get the 2020 Hughes for the Arizona Diamondbacks, because of 2022 Hughes, 3.12 ERA, over 57 innings pitched, almost 11 strikeouts per 9, a 1.092 whip. Brandon Hughes was really, really effective in 2022. And if you get that Brandon Hughes, then screw it. Maybe I want 3 lefty relievers. Maybe I want Sal Frank, Joe Mansply, and Brandon Hughes in my bullpen, because 2022, Brandon Hughes put up really, really strong numbers for the Chicago Cubs, with runners in scoring position 2022, a 136 average and a 458 OPS, shut down with runners in scoring position. High leverage moments, 206 average and a 613 OPS in high leverage moments. And against right-handed batters, as a lefty pitcher, 183 average allowed. Brandon Hughes has, from the stats that he put up in 2022, really encouraging, really positive signs that make you feel like he could pitch against both righty and lefty batters. Brandon Hughes, if he's able to bounce back, he could be a major addition to the D-backs bullpen this season coming up. Now, will he reach that ceiling that he can do? Will he reach the ceiling that we know he has? Will he be fully healthy, and will he be able to execute on a high level like he did in 2022? That would be the question for Brandon Hughes, because if he could get back to 90% of what he did in 2022, that's a really, really highly effective pitcher. He has a 93-mile-an-hour fastball, slider, sinker as well. Mostly fastball, slider is his main combination. And that slider in 2022, 172 average allowed, 356 slugging allowed. That slider was absolutely shut down in 2022. So if the D-backs can get that guy, he has the 4-seam fastball. He has the 2-seam fastball that can work to both sides of the plate. Brandon Hughes in 2022, really enticing talent. And if you could get that guy, the D-backs bullpen should be in strong shape in 2024. So again, Mansply and Sal Frank, I think, are the top 2 candidates to be the 2 lefty relievers of the bullpen. I think Kyle Nelson's a really strong third candidate if we could get back to 2022 Kyle Nelson, or second half Kyle Nelson from 2023. And then Brandon Hughes as potentially that 4th option for the D-backs lefty relievers, as a guy who was really good in 2022. I like the D-backs depth among their lefty options on both the major league level and the minor league level for this upcoming season. So I would be very happy with Mansply and Sal Frank as the 2 lefty go-to guys to start the season, with Kyle Nelson and Brandon Hughes backing them up as depth options throughout the regular season. But now, let me give you your D-backs play of the day. The best bet that I think is going right now on FanDuel Sportsbook. I've given you guys a play of the day every day this week. And for today, the play of the day, I just think, is looking at the D-backs over-under for their win total right now, because their win total is at 83.5 wins. And the D-backs last year, again, won 84 games. So if you think the D-backs can at least match the win total that they had from last year, this should be an easy smash, because I don't know any reason you don't think the D-backs smashed it over on 83.5? If they were at 84 last year and we all agree the D-backs got better, how would they not win at least 85, 86? I'm not even saying the D-backs are going to be a 94 win team next year, but again, come into the season, what were the D-backs' biggest weaknesses that they had to address in free agency? One was upgrading their rotation, right? Getting one more mid-rotation starter. They signed Eduardo Rodriguez from the Detroit Tigers, who should have been an all-star last year. Now you got Gallen, Kelly, Erod, and Brandon Pfaadt as your 1 through 4. Improved rotation. How about third base, right? Big hole at third base this past year. Evan Longoria was not it. Eugenio Suarez in the decline of his career, still a dude with 30 home run potential, above average defense. He should be better than what Longoria provided last year. Will he strike out a ton? Yes. Could he still hit 30 plus home runs? Yes, as well. Major upgrade at third base. You brought back Lourdes Gurriel. Your lineup is as deep as any lineup in D-backs franchise history. Your bullpen, you're going to have a full season of Paul Sewald and the Kevin Ginkles with the Ryan Thompson and the Andrew Salfranks that you discovered from last year. Like, this D-backs team overall, from bullpen to rotation to the lineup, should just be improved from top to bottom. So if you think this D-backs bullpen and rotation and lineup are all going to be every phase of this D-backs team, if you think it's all going to be better in 2024, if you just think this is a better team and a better product than what the D-backs put on the field last year, I think they're going to be playing with a huge chip on their shoulder for this upcoming season because of the fact that they lost the World Series, a World Series where they were up in game 1 before blowing it here. I think they're going to play with a huge chip on their shoulder for this upcoming season, and I think the D-backs are going to come out the gates hot. They're improved in every phase of the team, and so for this Arizona Diamondbacks squad, I don't see any scenario outside of injuries to Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte and Christian Walker and Zach Allen. If this D-backs team is healthy entering next year, I don't see any world where they don't smash the over on 83.5 wins at -110. Go put some free money in your pocket because the D-backs will surely win between 86 and 88 games in 2024. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.